Hello, everyone. It's Simone again from Technical Writer HQ. Today, I hope you're having a lovely Friday. It's kind of raining here in Philadelphia, but we'll make it. Today, we have the lovely Ada Lee with us. We're going to get right into it. We only have 30 minutes for today. So, Ada, tell us, what is your academic background and how did you get started in technical writing?
Hi, Simone. Thanks for having me here. So, I'll jump in. My background is in chemistry. I have a master's in chemistry. And I kind of fell into technical writing. So when I was in grad school, I was pursuing a PhD in chemistry, and I just realized that I wasn't very passionate about working in the lab and doing research. So I was looking for different career paths I could pursue. I did start my first job out of grad school still as a research scientist, where I worked in the lab. But towards the end of my time there, I was tasked to work on a research proposal uh, to write up and draft and submit to NASA. And so through that, I
Ooh,
gained some
NASA.
experience.
Ooh,
Yeah,
very cool.
yeah.
Tell us more. Tell us more.
So through that, I gained some experience with just like interviewing senior scientists, technical subject matter experts, doing a lot of research on the subject matter on my own time, and then also in putting together an outline and writing a full proposal with a lot of technical content. And so I found that even though it was a very challenging experience, it was also more interesting for me, more aligned with what I wanted to do. And after I submitted that proposal, the editor that worked at that company actually told me that he enjoyed what I wrote and he found it easy to follow along, even though he didn't have a background, uh, any sort of technical background. So
Nice.
that was great to hear. And then from
Nice.
there, I moved into my first technical writing role at a large aerospace and defense company.
Awesome, awesome. So you talked about working for NASA. That is super cool. It's been on my mind because we just had an eclipse. I don't know which part of the country you're at. Were you all in the path at all for the eclipse at all?
No,
Or
I'm in LA, so it's
okay, okay,
nothing
yeah.
too exciting.
Yeah. We had a little bit, but the cover like messed it up. But before the call, you were sharing that you were actually writing the documentation for computer-based training for air traffic controllers. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so for in that role, so that was at my first tech writing role. Basically, what I would do is look through engineering documents for changes that they made to the air traffic control system, um, and then figure out like what content was relevant to air traffic controllers, basically what they would see on the screen when they're at the air traffic control system, and
Wow.
then write out training materials based on that.
Wow, wow, wow. So you're saying you had to learn and understand a new system, figure out what changes were made, and then write about it so that somebody new or maybe experienced as an air traffic controller could actually perform their jobs. I thought it was
Right.
interesting when you shared that because I run in and out of the airport all the time and I never stop to think a technical writer was part of keeping me safe and the plane safe and the pilots and the crew safe. So thank you for doing that.
Of course,
Um,
yeah. There's
so
a lot of people involved in
there
that.
are a lot of
Yeah,
people
more than
involved,
just tech writers,
the
but we're a
writers.
small part of it.
So earlier you mentioned like you were in a graduate level program where you were doing research and understanding complex matter, and then you had that research proposal. So how would you say there are any similarities between how you did your master's degree and then what you do now in technical writing?
um, a lot of research. Yeah, different
Mm,
type kind of research. Of course, like in chemistry, there's more like doing research like in the lab versus
right.
tech writing. I'm um, doing a lot of reading up on materials and interviewing a lot of subject matter experts. But there's definitely that whole like research and like planning component to it,
Mm, mm.
and just like having the ability to grasp technical concepts.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Two things you said there. You have to do planning and then a lot of interviews with subject matter experts. I think a lot of times people think technical writers just laptop and go, just write all day. Can you talk a little bit more about what that planning looks like, and then like how to establish that rapport with your subject matter experts at a new job?
Yeah, so I would say it kind of varies a little bit across each industry, of course. So like for example, like right now I work for a software company, and the way I go about learning about like a new product feature is to just try out the product myself, see what's been developed, and then uh, try to learn as much as I can about the product on my own, and also look at any documents that were created, uh, like design documents, anything that engineers or anyone with the who's a subject matter expert put together, and then from there, like then I end up having questions here and there about how certain features work, and so I reach out to the subject matter experts, and just through like conversations, we just slowly establish rapport with each other, and I'll ask questions that they might not even think about
True.
when they're like working when they're designing. So um, being a tech writer, you add a different perspective.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And then with your chemistry background, like we've had guests on here who have an English background or a non-technical background who become technical writers, and their philosophy is I am an expert in English construction, sentence construction, and I'm writing this documentation from the perspective of somebody who has never seen this before and is trying to learn. As a chemistry background where you have some of that technical expertise, maybe not in the software, whatever, how have you leveraged your chemistry and technical background to inform your technical writing?
I think it's really just about breaking down complex concepts and making them easy to understand, and diving into it just so that I can understand it from like a lower level,
Hmm.
and then from go from there.
Okay, okay. And then when you said lower level, I love that because there's a I think it's called Hemingway app or something, and it actually tells you what grade level that you're
Oh,
writing your
yeah.
documentation at. And I think 7th to 8th grade or something is the recommended. And then of course graduate level with research articles is a lot higher. So can you tell us like a little bit of the difference between maybe a research article that you would regularly write or engage with in a master's degree level compared to the sort of writing that you now have to develop as a technical writer?
With research articles, it's much more complex and very focused on that subject. Um, with what I'm writing now, it depends on the audience, your target audience, but of course, like if you're writing um, documentation for users of the product, you want to simplify the concepts in a way.
Right, right. I like that about simplification. Because we're talking about very complex materials, whether it's chemistry or software. And I know you transition between different roles. Any skills or any tips or practices that you do when you enter a new role to help you become more familiar with the lay of the land? Any special tips you have for our listeners?
Um, it's really just about being eager to learn about new tools. Really, I feel like with whenever I transitioned into a different industry, a different role, I would learn. I would either use. Of course, the product would be different, or like the whatever the team was using to create documentation and content. That tool would be different, and so it's all just about being able to adapt and learn a new skill.
I love what you're saying about learning a new skill because you would think after you get your degree, you're done, right? You're done
Yeah.
learning, everything's good, like I'm ready to go. But what you're saying that you're continuously learning, even as a technical writer, are there any uh like as far as you talked about planning, are there any tools, software tools that you use to actually accompany you as you're learning this new technology? Anything that you use primarily?
Um, just for myself, when I'm first gathering information, it's really you don't really necessarily need any specific tool. I would say just some tool that can help you organize your thoughts, to help you break down the content for yourself, and then to like I always like to list out questions that pop up in my head, and then organize them so that when I meet with a SME, then I'm ready to go with all these questions.
I like that because I know SMEs and subject matter experts usually have no time at all.
Mhm.
And I love how you're saying you do some of the homework yourself. You actually learn and ingest some of the software. You play with it, you break it, or maybe not break it, and then you ask questions that actually help the conversation go forward. Do you find when you have like what do you do like when you have to work with somebody who's particularly busy, or maybe just not difficult, but maybe just doesn't have any time? Any tactics you use there to kind of get them on board, like we're trying to write this documentation to make our end users lives better? Any tips there?
Yeah, I mean, like first I start off with just saying that we're trying to make this documentation, uh, we're trying to put it out to make it easier for our customers. So we're working towards the same goal. And then, so this is where, again, like we're having those questions ready, very specific. I think what one thing is to ask very specific questions, um, and just try to understand like how, like the subject matter experts communication style, if like a quick chat is best for them, or if it's better to just have everything in one document summarized, with all the questions pointed out there. So it's about learning like their communication style and what they're comfortable with, and just and also just also have, sometimes you have to be proactive and keep checking in.
Yeah, I like that part. So you're saying you're not going to wait for them to come to you. You're proactive in reaching out to them to
Mhm.
establish that communication with that. Has there been any software where or any project that you've been working on where it was you just couldn't figure it out? Like it was just like you were missing like one piece in the puzzle. And then what did you do to overcome that so that you could actually be effective as a technical writer?
Um, yeah, so that's definitely a case where I would reach out to the SME, and just like explain what I've done so far to get to the point that I'm at, to and explain what I understand and what I'm guessing is supposed to work or not supposed to work, and then they would correct me.
Right, right, right. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And so in so you have a technical background, and and it's not English like some of my other guests on here. Have you had to do any certification, any leveling to bridge that gap from the technical parts to like the communication part with the writing? Anything at all?
So I actually haven't. It's something I considered, but I think just going through grad school,
Hmm.
I felt like I was done with school. um, um, but when I was in grad school, I did take a technical writing course, so that at
Oh,
least helped me with like refreshing my writing skills and
yeah.
understanding how to present content in a very clear and concise way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's that's interesting because I always think like engineers, chemists, scientists, we always have a bad reputation of not being the best writers. So I'm always like curious of other like technical people with technical backgrounds get over that communication. I don't want to say uh some issues that some of us in the technical field might have. So that's interesting. So you're saying in grad school, going through that rigor of grad school actually prepared you to be a technical writer because you have both of that technical background as well as the communication side. So that's great. That's great.
yeah, and I think at least in chemistry, there were lab reports I had to write up in
Mm.
undergrad, and so I did. I guess I didn't make that connection back then, but there was a lot of writing involved.
Yeah, that's interesting. So for anybody thinking that you can get away from writing by getting a STEM or engineering major, like like you have to write a lot, even more so. You're saying in grad school, right, compared to undergrad.
I was saying both, a bit of
Mm.
both. Like in undergrad, like when I had like 3 hour lab courses every week, so
Ah,
those there were classes where I consistently had to write up lab reports, and that was in undergrad. In grad school, um, it de- I received my master's, so I mainly took classes.
uh-huh.
But if you're working on a research project, then you would have to start writing more as
A
well.
lot for the articles, yeah. Has any of your work been published or anything?
No, I didn't get that far, but that's all right.
Yeah, I did like a non-option, like a non-thesis option when I got my master's. I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
I got burnt out with like just the hectic pace.
Yeah. I chose a
Being
non
allowed.
path. So
Yeah, it's tough. It's
it
tough.
is.
But it makes you, I think, even better ready as better prepared as a technical writer because you're used to having to work with difficult people sometimes, difficult concepts, difficult topics. So
Mhm.
in your writing style, I always try to ask this to of my guests. Any I know we talked about tools to like learn, like to come up to speed with the software, but any tools for deploying the technical writing? Is it Google Docs for you, Microsoft? Any of your favorite tools, Confluence, anything at all?
Oh, there's so many tools. I feel like
There
each one
is.
has its pros and cons. I would say earlier in my career, I used like Microsoft Word,
Yeah.
um, and then when I was working on the air traffic con- control training materials, we used a software called Authorware.
Huh.
It's like an kind of like a learning
Ah,
like those
email.
types of, yeah. But
Mhm.
it got bought up by Adobe at some point,
Oh,
and
nice. Okay. Okay.
yeah. And then in my more recent roles, like internally, we use Google Docs or Confluence or Notion, like one of those,
Mhm.
to output documentation for customers. I've used a number of different tools. I've used Peligo at one
Okay.
company, um, and for like API documentation, there's Stoplight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a number, and then also I use MK Docs, a static site generator for
Okay.
outputting a number of product documentation, developer documentation, all on one site. Um, so there's a lot of different tools out there
Yeah.
that I have yet to learn,
But
actually.
obviously, one of the writers on here said he's been in the game for 36 years, and he was saying he had to physically like copy and paste, like it was like physical paper. And I think now where everything is online and software, I think it's fascinating. But even though the technology has changed, but the need for technical writing and concise and clear. And like your editor told you, engaging documentation is still so very necessary. I
Mhm.
love that. I love that. So I wanted another guest was talking about she worked in the the government and certain departments, and she had to get certain certifications. I know you talked about having to get certified for the air traffic control role. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is a long time ago, so I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but I did have to
That's
get
fine.
I had to apply for FAA clearance. So
Okay.
the FAA was one of the customers, um, and so that was it. Didn't It wasn't like a secret clearance or anything like
Okay.
that. But it was just a process I had to go through like background checks and visit some site to get my picture taken and go
Oh
through run through like some assessments.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Because a theme that I'm hearing with of everybody on here is there, like you said, after grad school you think you're done, but like going through the technical writing journey, there are certifications and courses and different things, especially if you want to enter certain industries. I'm hearing a lot of in the government industry, different departments, defense particularly, like you said, NASA, very cool, and aerospace. They also need that certification. So overall, like when you started your chemistry undergrad, did you see yourself becoming a technical writer? Like think back 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Is that where you saw yourself? And do you regret
Yeah.
it at all? Like entering technical writing?
Yeah, I definitely didn't imagine I would go enter any sort of writing role. And
Oh,
I wasn't even aware of technical writing as a field.
right,
um,
right.
yeah, so but like I don't regret it. I feel like it's a fitting role for me. It aligns with what I like to do, my interests. I get to learn about news new subjects, some pretty complex, without having to be the actual expert on it, but I get to write information about it and help others learn. So
Right.
that's the part I like about it too.
Right. I love that. I love that. Everybody's echoing the same thing. Like I said earlier, when you worked with the FAA, like I take it for granted the amount of documentation and paperwork and different organizations that it takes to run an airport. You just kind of walk in, hop on the plane and hop off, right? And I didn't even think you would have technical writing in that field. So we're everywhere. So we
Yeah.
just have a few more minutes left. I just wanted so overall themes for you as a technical writer, any trends, AI, has that affected you at all in your role with technical writing?
Um, I would say I'm trying to leverage AI to my advantage. It makes me worried that someday maybe you know I'm sure we all think about that, but
Yeah.
I think it's about just understanding how to use AI and
Mm.
to streamline our own workflows and help us um, focus on the tasks that we really need to focus on, and use AI to help with the smaller tasks.
Right, right. To
Yeah.
augment those smaller things.
Hmm.
Okay, okay. So just like I said, just a few more minutes left. So just to close us out, any tips, tricks, any successes you want to share with our listeners as they go enter or continue their technical writing journey?
I would say just be curious and explore.
Mm,
Yeah. Like like I mentioned earlier, I didn't specifically pursue any sort of certification after I received my master's. It's really just about finding the right opportunities and jumping in and learning. And if you're passionate about it, if you're really interested in the work, then you'll do well.
yeah, I love that. I love that. And then just to reiterate your last point, right before you said the work that you're doing is helping somebody else do their job better. Can you expand a little bit on that before we close out?
Yeah, it's if you ever receive feedback from customers, just hearing that it helped them uh,
Mm,
understand how the product works, and also just feedback from even our internal users as well.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
and then also when I was working as a technical editor, I did hear about how I just helped scientists and engineers enhance their writing, that
Nice.
their technical proposals and reports that they were submitting to government
Nice.
agencies. Yeah,
Does that make you feel so good inside?
yeah, yeah.
Helping all of these technical people get better at something they probably hate.
Hmm.
That's why we're here. But I love that. So thank you so much, Ada, for
Of
joining us
course.
today on this Friday. I think it's afternoon. Is it morning time for
Yeah,
you?
still morning for me. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you
so
for having me here.
yeah,
It
thank
was
you
great.
so much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a good weekend. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Ada.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.